Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swiz, here to talk Road to Round 1. It's part 4 of my team series. The preseason is over, and we are into the regular season finally. Less than 1 week. We're starting to lock in our teams. Plenty of changes going on. I know I have played around with my team and still playing around with my team all the time, especially after those preseason games. Looking online, there has been a lot of people playing around with their teams, and rightly so. As always, continue to check us out on all our social media platforms, TikTok, YouTube, and in particular Twitter. Interact with us, Supercoach Insider 100 or Swiz26 for me, and our sponsor, Splash Vodka. Thank you so much. We can't do this without you. Well, 1 week out, and we are really making some moves here with our team. So I'll go through defense, midfield, rucks, and then forward, and I'll go through a bit of what I am thinking. Plenty of options out there. I know a few people, it seems like most of the community have probably got maybe 20 similar players, and then there's probably 10 that vary between us. As I've said along, there's still a few positions which I can juggle, and it'll probably depend on what rookies get named if I make some changes to my structure. But let's have a look at what I've got going now. So D1, Sam Doherty. I've had Dawson in all pre-season, and I still think Dawson is going to be probably slightly higher than Doherty, and realistically the top 4, I think there's nothing in it, which I think Sicily, Dawson, Doherty, and Stewart. But I'm starting Doherty just because of the really good run that he has starting off the year. He got 154 from 34 touches and 11 marks in the preseason game, 35 CBAs, but also had 3 kick-ins. Got the time in ground. We know he's previously averaged 109, 114, and 108, so he scores very well and scores well in a variety of roles. We still think Walsh probably will be out round 1, could be even round 2, but it even doesn't matter if he's playing midfield because he can obviously go down half back. The only thing to really think about with Doherty, now it's a small sample size, but since Zach Williams has joined their team, he's averaged only 103 and 96 with Zach Williams out. So that is a little bit of a thought, but with their early draw, it's definitely, I'm very confident on Sam Doherty's early scoring. I think it probably peters out a little bit as the season goes on, and that's where we'll look at our Dawsons and our Stewarts then. And I'd really like to try to still fit Dawson in if I could. But yeah, I think Doherty of the big 4 is going to have the fast start, so that's why he is in there at D1. D2, I've gone a little bit cheaper, and that is the Essendon intercept marker in Jordan Ridley. 128 from 27 touches and 12 marks, including 2 kick-ins from his practice match. He's previously averaged 101 and 98, but we do know that I think it's the 101 season, there was that injury-effective game, 37 or 38 against Brisbane, where he was carving up early, and then it might have even been only 31, but and got injured. The thing that really made me look hard at him was that setup under Scott. So it looks like he's the intercept defender. You've got Redmond and McGrath playing probably a little bit, 1 kick up further than them, especially when defending when the ball was up in the forward 50. Seemed like Redmond and McGrath were sticking 1 kick out, and then you got Ridley behind them playing as that last defender, but intercept marker. Your Zerk Thatchers and your Kellys and that are more your lockdown, and it looks like they're using Ridley's strength there to do the intercepting. So I do see probably even a spike there with McGrath. I see a few people go McGrath. It's not, I think Ridley's the one I've got more confidence in. In a perfect world, yeah, I would like to see Dawson or even Sicily in that spot, but I think Ridley can definitely challenge the top 6. I've got him at 5 in my defender ranking, so I'm very confident that he's going to be that one. I had Dacos in there for much of the preseason. The thing that put me a little bit off Dacos was I wanted to see how he'd go against the tag. Didn't go so great with that. I still think he's going to be a top 10 option, so I'm not against those who are still on the Dacos train, but it's just when I'm looking at that one spot and I'm going Ridley versus Dacos, yeah, I think Ridley at the moment's got the more upside, and they've got a really nice friendly draw early on, so yeah, what teams where you think they're probably games they're going to win. You don't naturally think, okay, defenders are going to go that well, but you look at the sort of the Hawthorn setup, even St Kilda, without Max King, there's going to be options there for Ridley to take intercept marks because those teams won't have the full forward lines, and I think that will definitely help an interceptor like him. Moving on to D3, I think he's he's one of the most popular defenders, third most popular defender at the moment, 51%, Elliot Yeo. Now, he's the one I did put on Twitter that came out of my side over the weekend, but I have put him back in. I would really like to get Yeo up. It's a bit hard to find the extra 270,000 to get him to one of those premiums unless I really change my team. Still could happen. So I didn't really like his role as a defensive midfielder. He did start slow in that game. The one probably thinking about it was the upside that he did finish really strong in that last quarter, got the goal, respectable 78, played 43% CBAs and only 67% time on ground. So there's definitely upside. But the game was pretty well over. So it balances out one couple of ways there. It's like, okay, yeah, I really got involved in the game when it was over, but he did junk up hard. So that's always promising. Would prefer him in that sweeping halfback role. The real positive is North Melbourne and GWS first up. So it's one of those things that go, okay, do I bypass him like, half the competition are? But if he's going to score early, it's definitely in those two games. And I'm kind of leaning towards going, okay, if he was to fail, yeah, then I can make probably the trade there. He's one of those early ones was like, okay, if he doesn't go well, it might be an easy downgrade to a rookie I've missed, or maybe if I'm downgrading somewhere else and he's the one then that goes up. But yeah, he's got two of the easier oppositions to start off with, so if he's going to score, it's going to be then, and then at least I'm on the train. The other thing is, though he has really broken down with his body over the last 3 years, apparently he's had a great preseason, but I'm not thrilled with how the other West Coast players looked. Sheed and Gaff and all of them looked like they were struggling. It's probably more the young guys like your Gimbies and that who were much better across the ground. So I'm not too sure if it's just West Coast struggling because of all the injuries they've had. Maybe it's a new fitness staff or whatever, but the West Coast midfield didn't look super fit. In saying that, there's 50% and probably come lockdown and probably lockout, it'll probably 60% for Yeo, so it's just confidence in numbers more than anything. All right, moving up. Well, I was going to say the next is a rookie, but this guy is not. He's come up to 27% of teams, and that is Liam Jones. So Liam, we know he had the year off last year, the sitting out because of the anti-vax COVID stuff. I'm not going to get into that if you're pro or against that, but with Keith and Bruce, Bruce looked a bit more lost down defence, but Keith definitely was obviously the lockdown. Jones played that intercepting role, 19 touches, 11 marks, score of 101, looked super fit with the year off. In the previous 5 seasons with Carlton, he's averaged between 66 and 77, so he's not going to be a keeper for us, but definitely somebody who, if he can score in that range and hopefully closer to 77, he's going to make that 150k, which is what we're always looking for as a rookie. And I'm treating him as an expensive rookie. We know he's going to play, so I don't have to worry about job security there. And it's a really friendly role. He has in the past, he scored some low scores, but at the same time, I think his last season at Carlton, he still put up a massive 140, and then I think he followed up maybe with a 12 a week or two after that. But those sort of scores there will actually get that, the cash generation going. He's also, since 2019, averaged 3.4 intercepts a game, which is number 1 in the competition with Jeremy McGovern. And intercept marks, they're like gold in Supercoach. So a lot of confidence there with Jones as a defender. So, I don't think at 228. I know a few other people want to go a bit cheaper. And, that's where like McKenna's come out on my side. We'll, monitor him. But there was a couple moments in that Geelong game where he got outrun. And McKenna's, known for his speed. I know I haven't been hot on McKenna all preseason. So, naturally, I was obviously looking for anything to probably take him back out, and that was an easy one. And then with Jones available, that 50k I could find, or 60k, and make alterations elsewhere. Now we go actually get onto the proper rookies. This guy probably should. It's funny that he's only in 60%. He should be 100%. I know he's 171,000, but Ruben Yinby needs to be in everyone's team. It's just as simple as that. And I could see people having him there at D, well, I think D3 is too short, but D4 definitely. Some people might even try to start in the midfield, but there's some options there. So I think probably should be people's D4. 17 touches, 5 tackles, 99 Supercoach, 43 CBAs, and just 56% time on ground. Thank you very much. He looks so comfortable at the top level. And it just should be a lock, and that he's going to get played. He moved well, kicked the ball beautifully. So what more can you say about that kid? And the last one's the second most owned defender, and that's Charlie Constable. So Constable, 19 touches. A lot of them were kicks, had the 2 kick-outs, scored the 73. So, yeah, he's definitely got that halfback flank role. They've got enough confidence that he can take kicks. Probably the only worry I had a little bit there was with Ben Long. How's that going to work? What happens when Powell comes back? But for now, I think they've got a lot of faith in Charlie Constable. He's mature age. He's been around, came from Geelong. So, I think he's an easy one, not just to back in, but put on your field as well. And I think he's the perfect D6. He's got the dual position too, which could come in handy if we need to cover the midfield, if you're setting your team up like that. All right, we've got, now at the moment I've got, and this is it's kind of the balance here of which way Brisbane go, and possibly I might have to find the extra money for McKenna. But for now it is, we've got Darcy Wilmot in there. Halfback and defensive wing role. I don't like players who've got the defensive wing role because obviously the ball doesn't go through there as much. So he had just the 9 touches, still the 52 Supercoach from the 9 touches, 76% time on ground. Brisbane do have a lot of options, players who are missing out of that teams that they could bring in. But naturally, they had the Conference Go Wilmot in the finals last year. I think, definitely he's going to start. How much of a run he gets, that's probably going to be the case and that. And in a perfect world, would like to see him down the halfback flank role, but and more that attacking halfback flank. But they do have a lot of cooks in the kitchen for their halfback. Rich and Kitty Coleman, and then still trying to fit McKenna in there too. So for now, he's in there. There might be another option there to swap, but I think as a D7, I'm comfortable enough with him there. And the last one, and this, I probably should put these two guys together. So I've got Lockie Cowan, and then in the midfield, and if I can find him there, I've got Alex Sincotta, so the 102. So I'll talk about these two guys together. And the reason for that is it looks like one of them will get the spot. Now, I think there might be a lot of chopping and changing, depending on how they go. I think with Cowan, Cowan being obviously the probably more skillful, talented, but he's the 18-year-old where Sincotta's the mature age. So they probably might even go Sincotta first. There's Oliver Hollands in there too, so they might play 2 out of the 3, where Hollands is more that wing. Sincotta can play more wing, where Cowan's more that half back. And if you look, like Cowan had the 10 touches, but also the 4 tackles, 57 Supercoach, 72% time off ground, came off the interchange, but he actually did get up the ground a little bit in that game and played some wing. Sincotta, on the other hand, so he had 16 touches, 6 tackles, half back, got up the wing. I just think he's maybe a little bit more versatile, and that's probably because, the mature age, 70 Supercoach, 80% time on ground. And we know with Zach Williams out, there's definitely a role there for them. He averaged 21 touches and 69 fantasy last season in the VFL playing in that halfback role. So I think that's probably why they go Sincotta first. So if my kind of thinking is, and we talk about our non-playing player and that loophole that we're going to have, even if I expect one will be named, one will probably be the emergency, possibly even the sub. So I think I'll probably start both of them with the view that if they are chopping and changing, at least I've got one, and the other one potentially can become my non-playing player. If they start both, well, that's even better, fantastic. So, and then Sincotta sits there in my midfield, becomes that loophole because, if he's playing, awesome. I might have to put him in case, say, Constable was to go out, or maybe want to move it around and put Gimpy in, and then Sincotta might go on the bench if Wilmot is, or Cowan's playing, or Wilmot's actually going well. So, gives a little bit of flexibility there with how I've structured my team. Kind of in a perfect world, I'd like a loophole here at M10, for the back line and M11 for the forward line. I don't exactly have my side set up like that at the moment, but definitely something I'm considering because it just gives that more flexibility. All right, I'll take Sakota out for now because it's just so he doesn't sit there, and we'll put him back on the bench soon. All right, midfield. So my number one midfielder is Rory Laird. And if I can find him here, he's actually not as highly owned as, there he goes, 25%. So I've got him in over Oliver. And I've looked at Neil as well. I think Neil's probably even gone ahead of Oliver. And it's not anything that Clary's done wrong. I just feel these top teams, Geelong's done it, Richmond before them, Hawthorn before that, have never really had the massive, one-sided scorer. We know Melbourne did in their premiership year, but I think they're going to try to have to roll more players through that midfield. Sort of, Oliver's still going to be great and still going to go, 120 probably. But I think they've got the reason why these other teams didn't have like these huge scoring players is because they have so many options run through their, so their midfield or different positions. It then, it's hard to coach against because at any point, the opposition coach can throw something at them. And that's what Beveridge tries to do at the Bulldogs. He just does it way too much and probably doesn't use his best players in there as much as we'd like to see. But I think with, say, Clary, for example, you're going to now see Pickett through there. Viney is out early, but, him, Brayshaw, they've got a few other. They might run, say, a Harms through there. Even it could be a Brody Grundy starting next to Max Gawn, and maybe they just throw that. So I think they'll throw some left field options at opposition coaches, especially the ones up the top of the ladder. Those big games when they're playing sort of your Geelongs and your Brisbanes and that. So that might see Clary just come back a little bit. It probably might affect Petrarca more, but I just think that could be a possibility where, I don't see Clary going 130 this year, but, he still probably could go 120 or early 120s because he's just that good of a footballer. But there is a possibility he might drop down maybe 50k. And I just think compared to Laird, who's just, we know Laird's an absolute tackling machine. He had that game last year where he had 20 tackles, had another 10 in the preseason match with the 32 touches. He only played the 73% time on ground for 151, just absolutely dominates. And I still don't think he's probably the tagging option because they might even go Dawson early on. So yeah, he's just a fantastic player, and he's that captain option. And I've talked about that, wanting one of the two captain options. Teams that have both, no problems. Those who have got Laird and Neil, even great. I'd have Took in there as an option too if it wasn't for his hamstring. I don't like picking players who have had pre-season injuries. So Laird as my number one captain option. All right, moving on is the Bulldogs champ. And I probably should... Where are we here? He is in 32% of teams, and that's Marcus Bontempelli. 27 touches, 145 Supercoach, 64 CBAs, 81% time on ground in the preseason match. The thing is, he only had the 58% CBAs last year, so already a 6% lift in that preseason. Dunkley had 51%, so we know they're going to get divided to different players. Caleb Daniel was a junior midfielder, so I expect him probably has a little bit through there. Maybe we're all hoping Toby McLean will. There's probably a little bit of a slight lift to Libba. They've still got players like Chalor, McRae, Bailey Smith, so they've got plenty of them. But Bond only needs hopefully maybe 10% of Dunkley's time there, and for a player of his quality, he can put 5 to 10 points on his average last year. I've said about him, potentially could even be the number one player this year. Nothing that I've seen is, making me shy away from that. So he's in my team. He's going to be a great VC option. Hopefully he becomes really consistent and becomes a captain option as well. But yeah, I think Bond's just that lock in there. I have considered trying to maybe move some cash around and putting another M3 to complement these two, but I'm going a little bit more mid-price strategy here. So my M3 is the GWS Bull. He's in 32% of team at the moment, and that's Tom Green. The match sim, he had 50 touches. On the weekend, had 34 touches for 130 Supercoach, 74% CBA, 75% time on ground. So bit by bit, that time on ground is growing as he gets fitter, as more pre-seasons into that body. He was GWS's number one CBA midfielder last year, but that was only at 58%. So already in the practice match, 16% going up. And that's because, we had Hopper 52% and Taranto 44%, and both of them have gone to Richmond. So like as we said with Dunkley going, there's going to be a slight boost while we're talking about, and the way this works, because how does, these percentages. So you've got to think a starting midfield would be 400%. The ruckmen take up 100% of that. So there's 300% for the other three midfielders. So there they had Hopper and Taranto taking up 96% of that time. So who's getting the midfield? We know Finn Callahan's not, because he's going to be playing wing. So Kelly, Canelio, Tom Green, they might, Halloran and Munch, you might see still your Toby Greens and other little players, roll through there as well. But they do have still some options, GWS, but I do think Green is going to get a large increase there. At 534? I think he definitely has upside there, and he's shown it pre-season, so I've got a lot of confidence there to have the young GWS Bull there at M3. All right, moving on. Now, this is the controversial one, and I will have to try to do a proper search for him. The Essendon new recruit, and that is Will Setterfield, and he is currently he's moved up to 3%. When I had him in, I think he was just got to 2. So a few people have jumped on the train here. Setterfield, 25 touches, 6 tackles for 119 Supercoach. The CBA breakdown was 47%, 87% time on ground. The Bombers have said he will start in centre bounces and play also some wing. The thing that I really liked, and I hate seeing players get injuries naturally, but Caldwell obviously had some knee issues there in the practice match. Parrish actually also was having his calf iced and was definitely struggling in that practice match. Now, I still think Parrish plays, but there's definitely some sort of little issue there going on. The Bombers have been wanting a big-bodied midfielder for ages. They finally got one in Setterfield. Now, and he has a little bit of good history with some scoring. Like, we didn't see it at Carlton, but he was played out of position because they already had, Patrick Cripps like that. It's Setterfield's, a poor man's Patrick Cripps. But at GWS, definitely, put up some really good scores. And I'm not looking at him as a keeper. This guy is definitely a stepping stone player. And Essendon's fixture to start the year is what's really makes me interested in picking him. So I think there's, you look at like tags, and we always think, taggers don't really come into vein till about round 6 when players are smashing it. But definitely it showed in even the preseason games that some clubs were willing to tag. Round 1, Essendon playing Hawthorn. Hawthorn showed that they are willing to tag. McGuinness will go in there. Even maybe Connor McDonald could play a lockdown role. I think Zachy Merritt's probably the one, maybe even Darcy Parish. So who's that going to leave free? Will Setterfield. You're playing the Hawks. Round 2, they've got the Suns at home. Round 3, the Saints at the G. Round 4, GWS back at Marvel. And then they finally move on to Melbourne. But those first 4 games are very juicy from a Bombers point of view. Can Setterfield over those 4 weeks go, 100 of that? Absolutely he can. I think the Bombers can definitely, if they're going to win games, that is the period they're going to win them. That's probably short, selling the Bombers a bit short, because they will win. They're not going to be a bottom 2 or 3 team. They're definitely going to win some games. So I think they're definitely going to see a bigger chunk of the pie. And I think Will Setterfield playing around that, there's no reason why that first month he can't sort of average 25 touches and, definitely make some cash. So, in a perfect world, I probably would love a 105 during that time and just kind of stay close to the premiums. Now, he's the one that probably is the one I've thought about moving up and maybe moving the money around and, maybe put it to a Neil, even a McRae kind of situation. But I definitely think at the start of the year that there's that potential where he could get within 15 points of those guys, and at 300,000 cheaper. There's I'm still backing him in, and that is my absolute pod there. So in 3%, I don't like carrying too many. I like to keep my team close to the field as possible, and I usually don't mind having one player. And as a mid-pricer, and after 2 games, if it does not work, well, he's an easy one to move. But him being more expensive means I don't have to try to find the cash to go down to one of these other mid-pricers if that is the case, if one of them are going off. So we're talking about Horne-Francis, Warple, Sheed. So Setterfield is the more expensive one of all of them, even Tanner Bruin, because he is a mid-4 forward. So, he's an easy one to go down to. On the other flip side, if it was, say, I had a Tanner Bruin and Will Setterfield was going off, I've got to then carry 30-odd thousand to 40,000, I think, in that case, to get up to him. So I'm going to back the Bomber in, and could backfire, but I'll know after 2 weeks and how that is going to go. All right, the next one is the Richmond midfielder, and that is Jacob Hopper. Scroll back up here. He's in 46% of teams. It's 23 touches, 93 Supercoach. He got the 81% CBAs, which is already an increase on what he had at GWS last year. Did exactly what I'm expecting out of Hopper. He's a 95 guy, 95 to 100. It's not flashy. He's going to make us 100 to 150k playing there. He's not going to be a keeper. Did exactly what I thought he would, and that's where I've kind of got him in that sort of line of Setterfield. A lot of people talking at the start of the year going Hopper Sheed, and that's where just slightly a little bit more cash I'm doing Hopper Setterfield, and I think they both go around that same. They're going to play that sort of same role. The only difference is Hopper's probably M1, or maybe that bull where maybe Taranto's technically the M1, so Hopper's M2, but he's locked in that Richmond midfield. He's going to get a lot of contested footy, but I don't expect him to come out and probably average 115, 120. I don't think that's what he's going to do. It's probably going to be close to that flat 100, and just does a roll to us probably up to the buys. All right, the next one, and now this guy has probably, made a few people think about, definitely he's coming to a lot of sides, and that I've been big on him all preseason. It's up to 19% now. That's very frustrating on my behalf on that, but that's Finn Callaghan. The good and the bad, so 22 touches, 111 Supercoach, kicked a couple of goals, and that was only from 66% time on ground. Playing on the attacking wing, the negative is he's not playing CBA. He's not getting CBA, so he's not starting in the midfield. So there's the flip side going, okay, if he's not going in the midfield, where's his ceiling there? And it's definitely capped, and it's probably capped at an 85. And that is probably the problem there because, naturally wingers don't score as well. The flip side to that is, every time Tom Green and Canelio got the ball out of that midfield, they were actually looking for Callaghan. He keeps his distance from the pack really well. Like you see some wingers do get sucked into the competition, but the best wingers do, just keep that space. That extra 10 metres off the pack gives them more time, and he uses the ball so well. So GWS will be looking for him, and I think that's just the start of what they're hoping is a 10-year relationship between him and Green for absolutely huge for his age and that. So, and looked really fit. So at the moment he is there. Have toyed with the idea of using his cash to play around with that because obviously 244, definitely I could move, say, Phillips, who I don't have on my field at the moment, and, that Callaghan money can be used elsewhere. For example, it could be Ridley up to Dawson, who I really like, or you'll see in the forward line soon. But I do like the fact that he looks like he's the attacking winger, and, he just moves so well. So, that's where he is at the moment. Next is the biggest lock in Supercoach this year. How many teams is he in? 76%. It's pretty high, but should be 100%. Will Ashcroft, 26 touches, 96 Supercoach, got CBAs, 83% time on ground. Don't need to say anymore. This kid probably, if he doesn't get injured, he wins the Rising Star. Simple as that. Gun. All right. I also on field, and this kid's come from the clouds as well, and that is Cam McKenzie from maybe 8%, maybe even less, to 43% owned. 24 touches, gold, 99 Supercoach, 61 CBA, 73% time on ground. So again, Amira, Tommy Mitchell had 62 and 53% CBAs between them last year, opening up the door for Hawks to get an increase. So you've got Newcomb. A lot of people are banking on Warple, and that's where I'm running Setterfield versus Warple at the moment, and that could be the that end of round 2 trade that I might need to make because Warple definitely will get time in there. They like to play the tag of Finn McGuinness. You still got Josh Ward. Connor Nash got some time in there last year. I'm probably forgetting a couple others, but they have a lot of young players that they're definitely going to trail through that midfield. So I think McKenzie, just because they obviously loved him, high pick, who just moves so well, and he's damaging off both feet. Great ball user, and just looks so composed too, playing against senior players. So I don't know if that's sort of 61%. It might only be 20-30%, and they've also said they might not play him every week. And that's a worry because he could become a sub candidate. But I think that just sees how his body goes. But I definitely think they surely start the season with him, and then hopefully roll him 4, 5, 6 games. Might give him a rest and then bring him back in. And I've got enough confidence there to have him on field, and I see a lot of teams have him at M7, and I think that's no problems at all. So put him in. The next one's the guy that a lot of people have at M8, and that is Will Phillips. And he's the one that could definitely come on field still for me. Then that might be the Callaghan move out. Phillips or other people, might be, say, hypothetically Setterfield. I see some people running, maybe a more expensive M3 like your Neil or whatever there. And that might be like your Callaghan, but I like Tom Green too much. So, but yeah, Phillips, I've definitely toyed with having on field. I do like the flexibility of having him on the bench as well. And that's just more because, I think him and McKenzie, one of them might go off. There might be different roles. There was kind of a leaked North Melbourne team the other day, which kind of has Phillips, I think, coming off the bench. He's definitely in their midfield rotation. And in his thought, it was just glandular fever that kept him out last year. So 17 touches, 48 Supercoach, but he did butcher the ball, but that's going to happen. Young fella still had 62% CBAs and 78 time on ground. I think, as he continues to develop and gets more game time, it'll probably become 20 touches, and he probably won't have as many clangers. Definitely can average us between 60 and 70. Happy to have him on field, but at the same time, I like the idea that he potentially can be bench cover. So I'll continue to play around with that in the next few days. The next one is Oscar Baker. Been pretty big on this kid. He's not really a kid, but preseason. He's come across from Melbourne. He was that more forward pocket half forward, but definitely has an opportunity, especially on the wing. Did get opportunities, a couple places on the ground in that practice match, a little bit of half forward. And they weren't going to necessarily use him as much, but, with Ed Richards going down, they had a couple other injuries. So, they kind of forced their hand to get Baker involved in the match quicker than they wanted, and he put on a show, 22 touches, 8 marks, 111 Supercoach. Yes, we can say it's North Melbourne and that, but Oscar Baker did everything right. And that's where I think a lot of people are thinking, say you take Callaghan out, Will Phillips comes on the team, and then you've got Oscar Baker there as your M9 and to swap around with Phillips. And I think that's definitely a fine move for those people who want to do that, and definitely something I'm still considering. I think he's definitely sealed his spot. Probably still want to come off the bench. My only worry is, does he become a sub candidate some weeks? And that's still, depending on how they want to line up with the Bulldogs and that, and the fact that he's got flexibility in different positions. So, there's a part of me that kind of wants to keep him at M10 for that reason. But at 123k, he's just a no-brainer in our sides. And we've already talked about Carlton's Sin Cotter, who is sitting there at M11 for me. All right, the ruck line. R1, and I've played around with a little bit of this, but Jared Witts is still in that spot. Second most expensive ruck. There's a couple of things leaning towards me. He had 13 touches, 23 headouts for the 101 Supercoach, but the big thing was he just absolutely dominated Bruce, ragdolled him around the ground. Bruce actually won more hitouts, but which just had way much better effect. So every time he sort of won a hit out, it's, you're hitting down to Anderson and Rowell, and that's without Took still in, and they're just going to get better. He didn't have a real, that coming off that knee injury in that limited preseason last year, and we saw what he did. He could be the most dominant ruck in the competition this year, so I'm looking at starting at him with more confidence. There's some good options still out there. A few people are thinking Gawn, but maybe because he gets dual position, and then at least you still got him that you can move into the forward line, and that's where Darcy Cameron's dropped off for me, because it's more likely either Gawn or Grundy gets dual position, and I'd rather one of them than Darcy Cameron. You've got the option of Darcy and Tim English are the other two real popular ones. So have played with the idea of going down to one of them because it gives the extra 20 or 40k respectively. But I think Witt's number one, and he's also my vice-captain option at the moment. Round one, he's playing against Laddams or even potentially McAndrew, but I think Laddams should be fine, so he should absolutely dominate that contest. And then he'll have Draper in round two. So I think Marshall just put up our 155 up against Draper in the practice match. So I expect Witt's first couple of weeks should start on a house on fire. And yeah, any player can go down, but I've got more worry about, just because the history of short-term injuries with English and Darcy than I do for Witt. So I think Witt's is pretty solid. He's GWS's leader in there, and yeah, I've got a lot of confidence picking him. And the teammate of here, partnering him at R2, again 52%. This should be way higher, and that's Rowan Marshall. 155, 24 touches, now no rider. The only issue is if Tom Campbell comes back and if they got another 40 injury because they're already missing Max King, do they then need to use Marshall more up forward? But wide Marshall is number one in the ruck, and Ross Lyon always likes to play teams to their strength. So I have full confidence that Marshall should be in that team. The only reason Marshall isn't your R2 is because he's your R1 and you're going somebody else, maybe cheaper. I don't like those options as much. I can see people who want to try to go Radigalea. Maybe McAndrew gets the game and Samson Ryan, and then you've got some confidence there, maybe. But there is a lot of risk with that. Marshall should just be locked in. And my R3 at the moment is in 26% of teams, and that is Radigalea. And he's the one that's been in and out of my side the most. I want him in because of the intercept role. 10 touches and 3 marks for 49. Wasn't the greatest thing, but 89% time on ground is what more I was looking for. Henry's injury. We already know Hawkins and Cameron's out. There's definitely the need for him. And in particular in that back line, I think, they more try to use other players to balance out that forward line in the first week. With Jack Henry going down, definitely shored up his spot in that back line. Looks pretty comfortable down there. Don't think he's going to set the world on fire, but if he can go 60s, that would be very nice and take some intercept marks. Maybe one big game would be really helpful. People who might have him at F6 or even an F7, great, no problems with that. And that's where I've played around a bit with having what I said before. Maybe Callahan comes out, sort of put that money elsewhere. Davey goes into that midfield as a loophole, and then Madden comes onto my bench and Radigalea, and then I've got loopholes everywhere to cover. So that's definitely something I'm also considering. I've considered having Radigalea there at F6, but that just means Madden then definitely comes into my side, just as that backup in case one of the rucks miss 1 week. Definitely, if you're starting a Darcy or English, you need Radigalea as a backup, just because we know they're most likely to miss a week at some point. So, definitely a worthwhile selection. It's just about how many games do we think he can string together. All right, forward line. The first guy is a lock, 68%, should be 100%, 31 touches, 7 tackles, 146 Supercoach, 83% CBA, Josh Dunkley, say no more. All right, pick number 2 for me is Connor Rosie, 45%. He also 25 touches, 5 tackles for the 111 Supercoach, 80% CBAs now. I think with all the full port lineup, that probably drops back a bit, and they've got a few to fit in there. Wines, Boak, Rosie, Butters, Horn, Francis, William Drew. So there are some options, but I think that there'll be some weeks where he'll definitely have a lot of CBAs. There's other weeks where Rosie probably plays a little bit more forward. Hopefully those games are against weaker oppositions where he can still kick quite a few goals. But we know how talented this kid is, and we know what he did when he went into the midfield last season. So full confidence of having him in my side. I've taken Canelio out. Not a huge overreaction to what his score from the preseason match, but that was more because of his role. Definitely, obviously, playing in the midfield and getting CPAs, but I found Green's your bull, Kelly's your attacking midfield, and Canelio, though he won a couple of centre clearances early on, he's more on that defensive side. So he still get tackles, still do a lot of good things, and I think he's still going to be a top 6 forward, but I don't think he's going to kill us early on. That's my hope anyway. He might hover just around that 100 mark. So I think I can still pick him up at the same price, and that's more where I'm kind of bypassing Canelio at the moment, because obviously there's a hype guy that everyone's jumping on, and we'll get onto him in a minute. But before that, 56% of team have Timmy Taranto, and we talked about those CBAs before where, he had the, where was it, at GWS last year, 44% on the weekend. He had 65%, so naturally a big increase at Richmond. Prestia did go out, get injured with that pec injury, but Taranto's playing midfield in that anyway. In the match sim, he kicked a couple goals and absolutely dominated. He was the second best player on the ground behind LDU. And then on the weekend, 33 touches, 8 marks against the very impressive Melbourne team. Had 124 Supercoach. Yeah, so he is fine in there because he is going to be used as Richmond's probably number 1 midfielder. All right, here's the one, 34%. What a jump up, Goulden. Credit to my wife because she was talking about him before the Brisbane game and that, and I was a bit like, this guy 10% of CBAs last year, probably calmed down that, and didn't he dominated against Brisbane, and wow, what a game against Carlton. 45 touches, 3 goals, 188 Supercoach, 69% CBAs, 85% time on ground. So that's the big thing. 10% CBAs last year. Where does the increase come? I still think it probably, even if it jumps to 30%, that's still going to be an improvement on those baseline stats of his. So, I've still got enough confidence to pick him. He's definitely in that conversation as a top 6. The hard thing is, what happens if some of these other players start picking up dual position? So we're looking, what is Petrarca or Gawn or Grundy, potentially, your Bailey Smiths, any of them. What do we do there? Jordan De Goey. But for me, I still think Dunkley, Rosie, Taranto, Goulden, and Canelio are probably up in that top 5, at least in your top sort of 8 to 10. So enough confidence them that I can start them. And if we get luxury with some of these other guys, well, I might have to consider the old side trade if one of these guys don't fire. But Goulden, I think he's definitely in the mix in that midfield. And he just uses the ball so well. And the hard thing is, if you don't start him and he goes on absolutely a heater early, what do you do then? And that is definitely the problem. And I think it's probably easier the other way, where if he was to have a couple poor games, and there's options then to trade him to. But Suns round 1, Hawks round 2. If we talked about Hawks tagging, do they actually go to Goulden? You're more thinking they're probably going to Warner or Mills. So I think, Goulden probably runs around and just does whatever he wants against the Hawks there. And that could be really ugly if you're not on him and he goes like 30 touches and kicks a couple goals and goes like a 140 or 150. That could really hurt your team. So he is in there. Now, this is where it gets really interesting because I've played around with F5 and F6 so much. So there's the cheaper guys in Mateus Philippou and Harry Sheezel that I've definitely looked at. I don't like Philippou as much as I do Sheezel. I think Sheezel's got the ability to get up the ground a lot more, where Philippou is going to have to rely on goals and contested marks, but he looks fantastic. And a great pickup for the Saints. Toby McLean's also been in there for me. Just the 15 touches. Did have the 85% time on ground. Another option as a sub-candidate for the Bulldogs. However, we know what he can do with the right role. And, that was just a little bit of a poor game for him. So I don't think it's panic stations right yet. I've looked at Fife. I've looked at Braun from Geelong. Depending if he's even named, everyone's hoping and expecting him to be after his 2 dominant performances in the preseason, but Geelong have so many options, so we've got the Friday night team listing for that. That'll be important because I'm definitely looking at him. Horn Francis had some good CBA times, scored the 70 with 6 free kicks against. So they have all been options for me, and depending on how. And Sam Flanders is another one. His CBAs won't be affected because Tuke coming back, because he kind of, it was more like, your Swallows and Davies were the ones that got the boost for him. But they do have such a hard start to the season. Can I really see him jumping up? But another solid option. So right now I've got the guy who's in 7% of teams, and that's Ben Cunnington. Now my only issue is it's another forward option there who I potentially won't be top 6 because of all these guys. However, we know Cunnington's done it in the past. He had 27 touches for 79 Supercoach. The big thing, 69% CBAs, and he did not have a tackle. So I'm really keen about that, because that is not how Ben Cunnington normally plays. Kind of was just get running the legs. Still was good enough to find it that many times. And I think, bounce number 1 against West Coast, bang, he will be tackling somebody. So, he looked back. And again, that first game, West Coast, like, their midfield didn't look crash hot. Like, why couldn't Cunnington come out and have 30 and 5-6 tackles and score a large score and then be on his way from there? So I've played around with him. The other one there is Zeeble. So we know he's going to get dual position come round 6. 15 touches, just the 2 marks. 86 Supercoach, 4 kick-ins, 80% time on ground. Maybe a little bit worried now that Taron Thomas looks like coming back and could be in that round 1 side, but I still think Zeeble's going to play that role. Ben McKay out means Griffin Rogue and probably either Young or who's the other one? Aiden Core play lockdown, which means probably Zeeble's just even more relied to have, as that intercept player. Is he going to move around as well as he did 2 years ago? And that's probably my worry, but I do like the fact he only had 15 touches and still scored 86. So as a slightly cheaper option, it's sort of 60k. Yeah, I feel like I'm ending up with one of these North players, either Cunnington, Zeeble or Sheasel. It's just about which one kind of fits in more with my structure. So at the moment, it is him. And also the joining him for now is Toby McLean. Just a worry. I kind of want to see where he's not lines up, but we know what he can do, and it's sort of those two, the cash, and that's where I was talking before, where Finn Callahan and Davey, and that money there can be either used. Like, I could go Cunnington back up to Canelio, but it's more the case of these two, because I'm trying to avoid having forward rookies. And as much as McLean's more a senior player, that's what I've been trying my best to avoid. So if that's even Fife, with his soft draw, I don't like the fact he's a forward, but that soft draw and pairing Fife with Zeeble or something like that, that's definitely some options that I'm looking for. And then the 2 rookies on field off field are Fergus Green and Alwyn Davey. So Green, the 8 touches, kicked 3 goals, 5 marks, 84 Supercoach. He's got that Gunston role, and we know Mitch Lewis is out too. So safe as houses. It's just about as matters how many goals he can kick. He's definitely a bench option. I wouldn't be trying to squeeze him on field. And Davey looked fantastic, playing that small forward role, but he can get up to more half forward and even up to the wing if need be. 13 touches, goal, 67 Supercoach. And I see a lot of people, and again, having him at that M11. So that is what I have at the moment, and with that, it is I'm looking at Wits into Laird, but I don't have that dual position player, so that non-Lupo player on my team at the moment, but that could still be a Sincotta or a Cowan. If they're both named, this is where then Madden comes in the conversation as well. So there's a couple little options that I'm looking at and left myself open depending on how teams are named. The thing to really think about also come round 1, you've got the Sunday games, so Giants, Adelaide, Hawthorn, Essendon, St Kilda, Fremantle. Now, a lot of the time, these rookie players that haven't played before will get named in the media in this week. It's the sort of guys that have already played before that might be a couple of games in that you might not hear about. But the good thing, Richmond, Carlton, Cowan and Sincotta will know which one is playing, and then we can make our decision around there. Geelong, Collingwood, that does help us with Radicalia. And then the Saturday game, which is huge, North Melbourne, West Coast. Huge from a Supercoach perspective, because it's Gimby. Some people might be still looking at Campbell, Chesser and Hewitt, and then all those North Melbourne options of that. And so we were able to lock in those players and then, able to make adjustments to our teams if need be. Beautiful. So that is my road to round 1. Thank you for listening. I'll be back soon to do your reviews. I've had a lot of people send in their teams, which I appreciate. So we'll have a look at that as everybody else and what the community are thinking for round 1. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk soon. Bye.